No need to go far and wide. Let Hometown provide. Hometown Trophies and Embroidery in Lena can help turn your ideas into reality. From awards, engraving, and gifts to custom apparel and business accessories, they have you covered. Visit them today or give them a call at 815-369-9185. That's Hometown Trophies Embroidery. Let your vision become their masterpiece.
Welcome to NUIC All Access, joined by Jay Doyle. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. Today we feature an official assigner for the White Pines Association, who also has spent time as a baseball coach for the Milledgeville Missiles. Jay, introduce our guest to us today.
Our guest today is Kyle Knutti, and we are discussing the many issues with official shortages in our immediate area and the impact it has on our student athletes for overall athletic experience across the NUIC.
Kyle, thanks for coming on with us today.
Hey, thanks for taking the time and inviting me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So obviously one of the big topics we're talking about are official shortages, and we're seeing those shortages on officials in our immediate area already. What are you seeing from an official standpoint and an assigner standpoint that's leading to these shortages?
From an assigner standpoint, first, there's just so many games in the NUIC and the bordering conferences, and there's not enough officials to cover them all. When I go on the IHSA website and look up the guys that have completed all the tests and done all the certifications and all that sort of stuff, in our area, there's, close to 100, but on any given night, there could be 40 or 45 games going on. That means we need 90 of those 100 to be available and be trained and be ready to work varsity contests. So all of us officials are also, we're all parents, we're coaching our kids' youth stuff. So to be available every night, 6 days a week is sometimes a challenge to get guys. And then in addition to that, we've got some travel restrictions. The NUIC is huge, from East Dubuque to Amboy and Pecatonica to Fulton. So we're talking a big geographic area where we have officials coming in from Center Junction, Iowa, and as far in as, Roselle in the suburbs. Down south, we're getting guys from Anawan that are coming up and working our conference. So we're pulling from every area we can to get enough individuals to work all of these games and give the kids and the coaches the best experience that they can.
Now, question on that, you said you're pulling from all over. Is that something that you can draw? Because I thought it was an issue before of drawing from, and maybe they just didn't want to come over because different pay or however that worked. But do you get a lot of, like, the East Dubuque Galenas? Do a lot of officials from Iowa area come over and officiate, or Madison down, or Wisconsin down into Illinois anymore?
The IHSA through a couple of years they changed their reciprocal policy
Okay.
to make it, and it actually honestly made it more difficult for out-of-state officials to work in Illinois. Recognizing the problems, they have relaxed that a little bit and actually made it pretty smooth for those Iowa and Wisconsin officials to come over to Illinois. So yes, a lot of the East Dubuque, Galena, River Ridge, Fulton games are covered with guys from Iowa and Wisconsin. Wisconsin is in the same boat as us, trying to find enough officials, and they play a spring season as well. Iowa's a little bit easier because their state has it figured out that the weather's way better in the summer, and they play all their summer baseball and softball during the summer. So a lot of those Iowa officials are available during the spring.
Yeah, I think the toughest part for your spring sports, your baseball, softball, is how many rainouts you get, or the temperature of change. I mean, for basketball, volleyball, and those sorts, they're played inside, controlled. You're only gonna, for basketball, it's gonna be a snowstorm, but for the spring sports, it probably has to be really difficult because of early season temperature and/or rain, field conditions play into effect, and then everybody needs to get their games in trying to find enough, and those games are longer games.
Yeah, the getting officials assigned, I still have not filled every slot that was available in October when I first got all the schedules. And then on top of that, you've got, if we were rained out yesterday, somebody wants to play next Tuesday. Well, I'm still trying to find guys that were originally scheduled for games, let alone replacement officials. Um, so yeah, the rainouts do make it difficult to reschedule. Um, the ADs have helped out tremendously in terms of I will tell them I can, off the top of my head, if anyone wants to reschedule a game on May 12th, I'm going to tell them no. There's not enough guys. Um, but I can give them suggestions as to when there might be some more officials available than uh, and or a separate or a single crew working two separate sites on one night.
So, like in basketball, we see referee crews that one set's doing the fresh soft or JV game, and then we have a whole new set come in and do the varsity game. Whereas in baseball, softball, it's the same crews doing the varsity game and then going back and doing the JV game as well. Is it because of the official shortages that we have to do that, or has that just been the norm for that?
Um, a little bit of both. I It's no secret that our official population is aging. Um, Basketball is a little bit more physically demanding in terms of, you're running up and down the court for a 28-minute Fresh South JV game, and then you have to come back and do the 32 minutes of sprinting in a varsity game, especially with the boys. They're way quicker than any of us 40, 50, 60, 70 year olds. Um, in baseball and softball, it's a little bit different because you get to do the varsity game first. So you're at full physical capacity for that 4:30 start. Um, JV, not to say it's not as important, but it's a little bit slower paced. So you get the quick one out of the way and then the slower paced JV game that you can keep up with. At the same time, there's some physical limitations on our officials. They are aging. They've got bad knees. They're not as quick as they used to be, and going out and standing in the cold for 4.5, 5 hours makes it tough physically on some of those officials.
So with that, in that conversation you said about a lot of older officials and that, what are some of the reasons why you think it's harder to get younger people involved in officiating?
There's, the social media is propagating the fan, coach, player, parent abuse. Um, I can honestly say in this area, there that's the exception rather than the rule. There's not the fans and coaches in this area are all pretty good. Um, do you get frustrated sometimes? Kyle, you've been frustrated with an official time or two?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah.
But it's not it's not as abusive as some of the travel ball Saturday stuff, what I like to call the daddy ball leagues. Um, the uh, the younger officials seem to um, I guess, be a little bit softer and more sensitive to that. They also have so many things that they're doing that their availability isn't as much. Um, so we're getting guys started, and if we get 10 new guys to start, we're happy to retain 3 or 4 for year two. And then some of them just disappear. They find out that it's not for them. Um, of those 2 or 3, we hope to advance 1 or 2 of them every year. Um, so it's a real slow growth, and we have more losses from retirement or physical capabilities than we do have growth every year.
So obviously, like you said, the media is propagating all these harassment issues, and we see that across the entire nation, uh, leading to potential shortages of officials. And I know that we definitely have some rabid fan bases here in the area. But are we seeing any of those fans chasing officials away here that you've heard of or have seen or anything like that?
I heard one or two throughout the entire basketball season. Um, Two that come to mind were in junior high games. One was a parent, one was a coach that followed the officials to their changing room, their locker room. Um, Thankfully, the administration was there and able to diffuse the situation. The officials got to where they needed to be. And I guess more of the, not even to say abuse, the criticisms from this area have been the popularity of every single high school contest is now recorded. There's video of it all. So that gets to social media. And um, like, myself, I'm a coach at Milledgeville, coach basketball, involved in the community. People know who I am. They can find me personally on Facebook if they need to. And, they can say, hey, look what you did. You screwed this up. Um, and, and you know what? I might have. And the good officials can live with that, can understand that. The good coaches can understand that not everything is going to be called correctly. Um, Kyle, if you were a better coach, you'd be in the minor leagues somewhere. If I was a better official, I'd be in the minor leagues somewhere. We're we're not we're professionals. We do get compensated for it, but we're not at a level like those professional coaches where it's our full-time only gig.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, I guess I've never understood the crazy stand-up yelling at officials, pointing back and forth. I've never seen an official change his call, and I've never seen that probably work in your favor. I think if anything, you're doing a disservice to the kids out on the court when you're doing that as a parent or fan. Um, because yeah, you get a lot of, and probably why I don't officiate. I probably make sure that you know how you stop and diffuse it is then you call a tighter game, and or you do those things to stop that type of action. And I don't think people understand that those things actually work in the opposite way.
And it's not just the single in game. You can take a younger official who is more impressionable, and they might leave the court or the field thinking, "God, I'm just really not that good at this." When that isn't necessarily the truth. You just, you know, every call you make gets half the crowd mad and half the crowd happy.
Yep.
So if you listen to the crowd and let them influence you, it might lead to you not wanting to do it anymore because you lose some confidence in yourself. Um, an added bonus of officiating is that I don't hear any of it anymore, which is actually great when I'm coaching because when the parents are yelling at the coach instead of the official, I don't hear them either.
So have you just learned to tune them out, is what you're saying?
Pretty much. So the other side of that, when I'm officiating a basketball game, I work a lot of junior high stuff and a little bit of boys JV. Sometimes like a coach is screaming at me for a timeout and I don't hear it because I'm not listening to anything besides the 10 guys and my partner on the court.
Yeah, I've seen a couple basketball coaches this year yelling for timeouts, and they get them later than they wanted to, and it's probably the same effect. You
Yeah.
got a loud, raucous crowd going on. You're focused on what's going on the
hmm
court. So you've already run by that coach who's trying to call the timeout, and now they're running down the court
Yeah.
trying to call a timeout in front of your face.
And
Um,
and that also comes with experience. Good officials are going to know when a timeout is likely to come, to stop a run or after a big basket or towards the end of the game, and they're going to look towards a coach. Newer officials don't have enough experience to know that process or when to do that.
yeah, it comes with that ebb and flow of the game.
Yep.
So what sports do you assign for, Kyle?
I only assign for baseball in the NUIC.
Okay. Um, what immediate impact have you seen already on the official shortages? You spoke a little bit about it, about needing to reschedule games and reassign things. having like 100 officials to choose
Mhm.
from, 45 games a night type of thing. Are there any other impacts that you've seen?
Um, I don't, 5, 6 years ago, it was very unheard of in this conference to have an official working a baseball or softball game by themselves. Um, we're going to have some games in the NUIC where there's going to be a solo official, which is really difficult to see everything and keep track of everything. Uh, that back when I was coaching baseball in Sterling for 1 year, like in 2006, I know that we went to Rochelle for a freshman game and they had a solo official, and that was really weird to me. But now it seems like more and more sub-varsity levels are going to a single official, um, which can lead to, missing something or more passionate fans yelling, which then leads to the attrition of the officials. Um, so we're not doing ourselves any favors by having the solo officials, except for we're getting the kids on the field.
Yeah, I've been a part of a couple lower level games where we've only had one official, and I've always told my staff and the
Mhm.
boys, I'm like, hey, we only got one official. I mean, it's something that I predicate into our team standards anyway. The officials are human. There is no instant replay. I don't want to hear you complaining about calls. And then in our parent meetings, I go through the same thing. I'm like, guys, we have issues with official shortages. I don't want to hear you bashing umpires or anything else for their calls because we need these people to stay around. And we don't need to be that group that is trying to rip down an official's call. They're human. They're going to make mistakes. I mean, like you said on video, yes, I've got video of calls that have been called against us that should have went in our favor. But I don't bring those back up. I've never reached out to you about it. I've never gone to IHSA about it because at the name of the game is it's a subjective call as it is. It's just part of the process and you got to let it be.
Yeah. You talk about meeting with the parents, reminds me of when I was coaching Fresh South basketball at Polo. We were actually playing at Milledgeville, so away team in my old gym. Um, the officiating was very loose. It was very rough basketball game. And I had to call a full timeout. I stood the entire team behind me on the court, and I yelled at our parents to shut up and let the officials do their job. And I will take care of the officials. You just stand there and clap. So the parents didn't really like that, but I didn't care.
It happens. I mean, at some
Yep.
point you got to put them in their place and that's one of the things I always tell an umpire about when things start to get a little bit heated. I'll say, "Have you heard anything from my fans?" They're like, "No," and I'll tell them, "Well, if you do, let me know. I'll take care of it first before you have to get involved."
That's one good thing about baseball is especially the guy that's out there in the field, they're a long ways from the fans. So if the fans say something loud enough for that base umpire to hear, then everyone else in the park heard it as well.
Yeah.
Uh, basketball, you're kind of right on top of things, so you get the crowd all the time. I've never been out on a football field to officiate, but I'd assume it's kind of the same way. If you can hear it as a football official, you're probably everyone heard it.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing in just being, in coaching basketball, but going to baseball, softball, football,
Hmm.
volleyball. I think basketball to me would be the hardest sport to officiate because for me it's so quick. Like I was a terrible official. I did some junior high stuff, and I'll never do it again because everything moves so quick, right? And everybody's right on top of you, and everybody's screaming and yelling, and it is a tough thing. Baseball, softball, being at those games, you really don't hear. I think everything plays itself out. Maybe yeah, bad strike call or a ball call, but you get another one, right? I mean, you get another one after the fact on a strike three, maybe, but
Hmm.
and football, you're out on a football field, and especially a football field with a track around it. I mean, you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere when you're officiating, but I don't know if there's more or less that you guys have trouble with. If it's tougher for basketball, I would think there's a lot more games on a night rather than baseball, softball because you got to take nights off for baseball. Um, But I think people don't understand the fact. They just see, well, our game got moved to a Saturday for football for whatever reason, or a Thursday. And we're seeing more of that now. Football games being played on a Thursday or a Saturday. Games getting moved around. Or what we were running into, or we ran into in football a lot, was you had to play a 5 o'clock game. So those officials could then go to the 7 o'clock game, and you had to wait for the officials from another game back and forth. And I
Yep.
think we're going to see more of that if we don't, find a way to get younger people in and younger people doing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Transform your outdoors with Baber Service Company. Landscape design and construction, including retaining walls and patios, mulch and rock beds, seasonal cleanups, and so much more. Serving Joe Davies, Carroll, Stevenson, Winnebago, Whiteside, Ogle, and Lee counties. Enhance your outdoor space with expert craftsmanship and attention to detail. Contact Baber Service Company today at 815 291 6334.
What are, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I know what it's going to have to take, and that's probably you just have to pay. And no school wants to hear this, right? But what it's going to cost is you're going to have to pay more money for officials to show up and officiate to make it worth. But are there any other perks um, of being an official, rather than as an official, we thank them every time for showing up because it allows our kids to play. But is there anything else other than that that might get people involved?
I The pay is competitive.
Right.
It Our conference goes by NISOC, which is a big conglomerate of schools and officials that set the pay for all sports. It isn't just baseball, softball.
Right.
Um, so we're generally on equal playing field there. Uh, Baseball, softball, I think that pay increases would help. Um, with the exception of volleyball, baseball, and softball, the only sports to officiate without a clock. So in basketball, you show up, you've got 32 clock minutes for a varsity basketball game. And you can, kind of get your hourly rate with that. With baseball, I've had a varsity game as quick as an hour and 6 minutes with the legendary Jerry Duke Hebler. And I've had a varsity baseball game go 14 innings and be almost 4 hours. Um, so I think in terms of perks, just getting the availability out there, promoting that it's for the kids. If you really enjoy the sport, it's a great way to, stay in it.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess I'm kind of at a loss from the recruiting standpoint with the younger kids. I guess we're kind of targeting that get 10, try to keep 3.
Mhm.
Um, I think we could change the recruiting audience a little bit to, some guys who are maybe mid to late 40s getting their kids that, just graduated school. They just watched their kid play varsity sports for 4 years and now they have some extra time on their hands. Um, and I say guys loosely, we've got 2 or 3 female officials in baseball that are out of the Rockford area that I'm trying to bring into our conference to maybe, drum up some of that interest. There are a bunch of men and women doing softball that can kind of expand that as well. Uh, I guess bringing up softball, that's one thing that strikes my or gave me an idea. I don't know if necessarily baseball and softball pay should be the same because softball can get done a lot quicker. So we're losing baseball officials, some of them that do it not all for the money, but the money is more important to them. They're, saying, I'm not going to go do a 3 hour baseball game when I can do a softball game in an hour and 15 minutes and get paid the same. So I think maybe making a separator there might help.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion, I think only way you're going to get is, yeah, you recruit the people who maybe just lost a kid to graduation and that are involved in sports. I think that's who you got to hit up. I think possibly pay. I think the tough thing that sometimes people don't realize is, schools have to pay the price of officials, right? And it's one of those
Mhm.
weird things that if you notice in baseball, softball, and being involved in the money side of it, those are like the only two sports that don't charge to get in. Um, so when you're talking for a school district, it's hard because that's the one sport that's a complete loss across the board, where you don't get you're paying your coaches, you're paying
Yep.
for bus, you're paying for all of those things, and you get, I'm not going to say nothing out of it, but you're not making any revenue
No.
coming in like you would a basketball, football, volleyball
Mm.
game. So it's like that's something you may see down
Yep.
the road, that for schools having to pay for officials, and I'm sure the only thing that's going to happen is, yeah, you say it's status quo, but in order to get people to come in, I think you got to be above status quo. So if everybody's paying 100 and you start paying 120, 130, well, now you're not going to have an official shortage. But the problem is that goes back on the school then, of they're the ones that have to cover it. But again, I've always said that I never understood what the rule was. It was the NUIC thing that they came up with, because I only know that because Orangeville was one of the ones that at one point charged and they took a ton of heat for it. So I'm familiar, and it was like probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I don't remember, but it was one of those things to where I remember they looked at it and they're like, we still have to pay our coaches, we still have to pay all that. And yes, kids pay a fee at the beginning of every school of travel expenses and stuff, but that never covers that. And with the way
It,
schools are anymore with financial or
mhm.
finances, it's one of those things that it's a give and take.
I'm assuming, not knowing the back end of a budget for the school, that football, basketball, volleyball admission gate fees are having to support baseball and softball and track.
Well, yeah, I mean,
In a
I
roundabout way, yeah.
yeah, I can't speak for every school and you don't know, but I don't, you're not, it's not supposed to be a moneymaker. It's supposed to be the experience of
Hmm.
the kids and all that stuff that you want to put on paper. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you got to make sure it's somewhat controlled, but you still have to pay the coaches and you have to pay the up cost of, it's hard to get bus drivers. So people are paying bus
Hmm.
drivers more than what they have to. And I think the common people don't see that. I mean, we make sure all the time we thank our bus drivers and we
Yep.
thank the officials, because
Hmm.
you can't get to the game without a bus driver, and those are normally the people that are taking time out of their day to earn a fee just to drive your kids from point A to point B, right?
Hmm.
And you need those things for officials to show up so you have a game. And I think that's what the frustrating thing you see as a coach and a parent, of when you have to move your game because of, well, we have no officials because of this, and you can see the underlying reasons why it's gotten worse down the line. I mean, 20 years ago it wasn't like it. 10 years ago it got worse, and it's just not getting better. And we have to do things to get better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what
One
are
cost you didn't mention is when Kyle needs to play after it rained, how many bags of Diamond Dry you putting out there to get the
oh
field
yeah.
ready?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, everything is a cost, and I think people just say, oh, it's you just do that. But I mean, in order to run programs, just to do it, I guarantee pretty much when you put it all, lump it together with pay of coaches, your travel expenses, I think people would be shocked at what schools have to pay, and what's lost in having sports for a school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point about the whole diamond dry. I mean, you take a look at most of our schools, especially in our conference, they're running off of one facilities crew that has a budget that has to cover every sport. So they're covering everything it takes to put down a football field, paint, markers, all that stuff. Uh, if they have soccer, a soccer field. Um, then you got baseball. You got the diamond dry. You got mound clay. You have
Hmm.
chalk, paint. all that stuff. And I don't think people realize how expensive it is to paint a football field just for one game.
Yep.
I mean, that's an expense that adds up really fast. Then you got the equipment costs of needing to mow the grass, trim the
Hmm.
weeds, all that stuff. And there's a lot more budgetary responsibility in it than what a lot of these facilities are getting budgeted for.
Hmm.
I mean, I know that our facilities almost operates at a loss every year because there's just not enough money to go around, and then we got to try and figure out a way to make things happen, and it becomes very frustrating on our end too because hey, we got to get this done, we have to have this, we have to have that. Oh, we don't have the money for that. Well, what can we do to get the money for that?
Yeah. And football, you have 9 games a year. You're going to have 4 or 5 home games plus playoffs. Um, Basketball, girls and boys, the state lets you schedule 22 to 25 games, depending on how many tournaments and things you play. Baseball and softball, the state allows 35 games to be scheduled. So I think one thing the state could do to help us out would be to, drop that to 27, 28. Um, we've got weather we're battling, we've got official shortages. If the schools schedule less games, there'd be less officials required. Um, and yeah, why is baseball, softball 10 more games in a 6-week season than basketball has in a 4-month season? Um, I know as a coach, you probably want more games the better, but maybe let them schedule 28, but you can play 25. There's 3 that are going to get lost to rain. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I put initially this year I put 35 games on schedule to load it up with the idea
hmm.
that I was going to lose some. And um, granted, one of those games was supposed to be a doubleheader with Providence Catholic. We turned that into just one game. Um, we lost our Morrison game due to weather. And there was another game. Oh, Sterling Newman. We had to change the date on what we originally had scheduled with them, which was May 7th. We had to change that because that happens to be our senior awards night, and we have not been able to find a date to make that up. So that we're already down to 32 games
Hmm.
now that we have on schedule out of the projected 35 that were allowed. But I anticipate that we'll probably lose some more to weather at some point in time. That last week of the season, you usually use that as any conference game makeups that you may need if you can't get double headers in during the series that you have. And I know during that last week, one game is our last conference game with Dupac, but then we have a Wednesday game with AFC, which is just an NUIC crossover divisional
Hmm.
game. And then we close out the season with Richmond Burton, which we've done each of the last 2 years on an annual thing because they've always been a team that I'd like to have before we get into regionals because they have the aura about them that they can go deep into the 2A
Hmm.
playoff, and it helps us prepare ourselves for what we hope to be a long playoff run ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get it, and I've dropped a couple JV games already this season as well, because this has been the heaviest JV schedule I've been able to put together, and I've done that primarily because we have the pitching availability to do that. So I want to get kids the innings on the mound to get that game experience, etc. Um, but yeah, at the same time, we're running into the same issues where okay, we got a couple kids injured right now. We're not going to be able to do a split squad, so we're going to have to do a varsity JV doubleheader. Oh, they don't have lights. Okay. Oh, it's going to be 40 degrees. All right. Well, let's just cancel the JV game. We'll run the varsity only game, stuff like that. And, it's one of those things where, each of the last 2 years, first year we played 25 games. Well, 4 of those games were in the playoffs, so we had 21 regular season games.
Hmm.
Last year we played 24 games. One was in the playoffs, so we had 23 regular season games. And this year we're trying to get more of a full schedule in. Um, and we've already been told that we may not get them all in because of official shortages being an issue with it.
Yes. I know that, the 5 years that I coached at Milledgeville, we always had Lee Win crossover that last week of the season. I think we played 2 years and didn't play 2 years, and one was because of weather, and one was because Lena had 35 games in before they were scheduled to play us, because they schedule 40, knowing that they're going to lose 5.
Right.
So there's, and then at that point, a team schedules 40 games because they know they're going to lose 5. That's 5 sets of officials that were assigned at the beginning of the year that now have lost games and would have been available to, get you your 34th and 35th game. So there's the schedule flexibility, and you talk about with lights, without lights, pitching. Baseball and softball, I think, is one of the most fluid year to year in terms of this year, Dakota's going to have a full JV and be able to play full JV games. Next year, it's going to have to be after a varsity because they've only got 11 kids and 3 pitchers. The following year, I've only got 6 freshmen and sophomore, and I've got 13 on the varsity. I don't have enough for a JV at all. And every school changes every year, it seems like, with these small schools in the conference, that it's so variable year to year as to who's going to have what.
So last question, we talked about kind of the perks and what we may see come forward for becoming an official. Let's say someone wants to be an official. What do they got to do it, and what requirements do they got to meet?
The IHSA website, ihsa.org, can follow your nose to the official center. It's across their top banner. In order to become an official in Illinois, you have to give the state their money. That's always a requirement. I think it's $70 or $75 to become licensed. It's basically one game you have to work for free. After you register with them, they will do a background check to make sure that you can, perform the duties as needed. You will have to watch the rules video, watch their hate speech video, watch their concussion video, and then take the part 1 test, which is 25 multiple choice questions. They give you 50, 25 at random are selected out of that 50, and you have to pass that with an 80 or above. Sometime within the first 3 years, you have to attend an IHSA clinic. And everything that I'm giving is true for every sport, not just baseball and softball. It's the same process for everything. Up in the northern part of our conference, the Blackhawk Officials Association is a great resource to get a hold of. I believe Dan Heinen is the president of that right now, and Larry Seipel is the baseball coordinator. For the White Pines Officials Association is kind of the middle of the conference a little bit, and Troy Stockton is the president of that association. And I'd have to go back and look through the meeting minutes, but I think I'm the baseball guy. I don't remember whether that was all other duties deemed necessary. And then in the kind of the far southern part of our conference, the Rock River Officials Association is another association that provides support and training. And Jim Du Bois from Morrison is the contact go-to guy for that. Once you get all signed up, then it's basically get with the assignors, myself, Don Cook, Jim Kalina, and we can get anyone start getting a schedule. I would love to say that there's, time to train in JV games, but we've had brand new first time officials, first time ever putting on the gear, and you're working a varsity game in the conference. That's just a product of what we've got going on. So it's basically thrown right into the fire, not going to sugarcoat it, that you're going to be working a high level game just to start.
Yeah, I had that in our opening game in Rock Falls. The kid behind the plate, I can't remember his name. He was a younger guy, so it was good to see that he was younger. Um, very tight with his calls. It was his very first game ever at a varsity game, and then he was put behind the plate on top of that. And I talked to him afterwards, and he asked me some things. I mean, yes, there were some calls that I didn't agree with him on, as far as how tight he was calling the game. But I never yelled at him. I told my guys to make sure that they were making the proper adjustments. But after the game, he come up to me and I told him, I said, "You did all right." He goes, "Well, what are some things you think I could work on?" I said, "Well, you just got to be a little bit more relaxed, open up this zone just a little bit more." He goes, "Yeah, I keep getting told I'm too tight." I'm like, what you got to do is you just got to find your zone and make it your zone and go from there. Everything else will come in time. I said, "You're doing fine. Keep doing up the good job." So, um, not saying that I'm the embodiment of what coaches need to represent, but I understand from an official standpoint too that we need officials. And as a coach, we can't be hard. And if I'm giving the message to my players and my parents that we can't be hard on the officials, then I myself have to set the exact same example. Um,
Yep.
and that's how I see it.
And we say we have a shortage, but we do have some really great officials in this conference. We've got some good, solid playoff caliber officials that are working throughout this conference. Um, I think we've got 5 or 6 guys that work regularly that have all worked the state finals. So the state has recognized them as officials that are of a high caliber for high school baseball. Um, those guys also are great mentors and can help some of these young guys along as best they can. Um, when I took on the assigning gig before last season, I was hoping that I could assign myself with some of the younger guys and kind of work in that mentor role. Um, turns out when we've got 15 games, so I've got 30 slots, I try to fill 29 of them and then I go wherever's left. So I'm traveling Milledgeville to East Dubuque this week and Milledgeville to Galena next week, just because that was the last spot that was open. So I'm not getting the teaching, training, mentoring time that I had hoped to get when I was doing this assigning. Um, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, honestly, as to how bad, how short it was, because I was always on the officials end. All I did was update my schedule and tell the assigner when I was available, and I had games every night that I was available. Um, but it is a way bigger task. I've spent more time with recruitment than I have with training, which isn't doing us what I'd like to accomplish, but it's getting games filled and getting guys started.
Well, and that's just it. You got to start somewhere, and if you don't have the bodies available all the time, and like you said, you got to throw yourself into the mix because you have to make sure you're also assigned somewhere to
Mhm.
help out. It becomes harder to train, and like you said, you're going to focus more time on that recruitment process until you can get more readily available bodies to meet these demands. Then you can start focusing more on that training process.
And the human side of it, we're all people with work responsibilities. Another thing about baseball and softball, game starts at 4:30. Not everyone has a job that lets them get to a field at 3:45 for a 4:30 first pitch. Um, a lot of us have kids or grandkids of our own, and they only play so many games. Um, I think that over 22 years, I've got to know a lot of the coaches and the administrators. Kyle, I actually had your game at Milledgeville earlier this year that my son played in. Is it a conflict of interest? Yes. Should I be there? Probably not. But would you rather have me out there or a solo game with a first time, first ever game official?
No, I had no problem with you being there. I mean, I gave
So,
you some I gave you some laughs in the coaches meeting about it, but I told you I
well,
get it. I understand it, and I mean we've had the same issue
yeah.
or potential issue with like Chris Wilde having to do a game
Yep.
where we're playing Lena Winslow, and I told you when that came up last season, I said I don't care if it's what I mean. Eventually, it worked out to where he wasn't needed, but at the
Got-
same time, if he was, I told you then I was like, it is what it is.
and I try to not go behind the plate if I end up having to be out of Milledgeville because I don't want that. And if I do go behind the plate, then my kid better know that his strike zone is 4.5 feet wide and 7 feet tall, and he's only 5'10". So he better come up there hacking. And thank God he never gets on the mound. If he did, it would be scary for everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. Now, one other thing, have you seen an impact on the baseball side with like travel baseball interfering with needing to get umpires for the high school level? Because at the 14U and lower levels, they're also needing to get umpires because their seasons are starting right now in April. Is that
It,
also interfering with that?
it's impacting a lot of Friday and Saturday scheduling. Um, and it's a good place for some of the younger officials to get some experience. Uh, I went and worked a triple header, well, the first two games of a triple header in Pearl City yesterday, and I worked with two guys that are first year officials. One of them was Jaden Downs, who was a senior at Pearl City last year.
Yep.
And I told him, he's like, this is like my fourth game. It's been all JV. And I said, keep working those. And actually, I thought that JV was harder to work than varsity. There's more crazy stuff that happens, first and second base and a pop up to the pitcher, and all the runners are going and they touch the base, and then they run back through the middle of the infield, and you got to figure out whether they touched a base or not. That doesn't happen in varsity games, but JV kids, you have no idea what they're going to do ever. Um, so you get weird rule things that happen. The travel baseball, um, I said Saturdays when Rockford Sports Corps is running a, 30-team tournament, or TBK down in Bettendorf's running a 30-team tournament. Yes, that takes officials away from guys that can do high school. Um, and although the per game fee, dollars wise, isn't as much, a young kid can go down there and work 6 games in a day and make $350. That's good money for a young kid first just starting out, as
Yeah.
opposed to working for $79 for a single game in our conference.
Yeah, it's a huge difference for sure. And I thought that there might be some impact to that too, but
Well, and
it's definitely
if you can deal with the daddy ball parents and coaches, then coming to the NUIC should not be a problem.
oh, totally agree. Totally agree. I did some travel ball coaching in between my stints at Forreston and Dakota, and needless to say, I've had some parents that act like it's the World Series every single game, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, seriously, this is 12U baseball. What are we talking about? This call ain't gonna matter 4 years from now. Last I checked, there's nobody up in the stands with a radar gun looking at your kid. There's no scouts here from colleges looking at you because they're not even interested in your kid at this point in time. And yeah, it's crazy how many arguments you see happen between parents or coaches and officials, all for youth sports. And it's like, you guys pay way too much money to have this be the issue that you're
Oh,
going through. And I
e-
don't know. That's a
e-
whole nother enigma there.
even in our area, I would much rather go officiate a varsity boys basketball game in our conference than work those 4 Saturday morning fifth and sixth grade boys and girls games.
Oh, yeah.
Because the parents are just learning the rules there too, and there's some crazy things that are said at those games.
Well, and that's like last year. I did a couple 14U games. I did a couple behind the plate, a couple out in the field, and the one I did in the field, I basically let 3 balk calls go. I talked to the player because there were 3 different sets of issues that he had creating those balks. It wasn't affecting the outcome of the game. It was probably actually keeping the game closer than what it should have been had I called them. but I was letting the player know, and then I was letting the coach know, hey, he can't step off the rubber to the front. He can't be doing this. If he makes a move to first, he has to throw the ball. Like, you got to start coaching these things. And granted, I should have called it after the first one, but I didn't. And but I used them as teaching moments at the same
Mhm.
time. So the kid, it was more for me. It was more for the kid to learn than me getting the call down and listening to the parents. That's not a book. But
And
I
you
wanted
never
to make sure that they knew and that they were learning and that they were teaching it too.
you never know what you're going to get because some coaches appreciate that. Thank you for helping my kid out or not making a call that impacted me, whatever it is. And then you'll get the one coach that comes out and gets right in your face and says, your job isn't to coach my kids. You're supposed to call the game. All right, thanks, coach. We're going to treat this like an MLB game then, and you're not going to like the results.
Right. Exactly.
That's a
Fortunately,
travel ball thing, not a.
I did have a better outcome with it.
Mhm.
Granted, one of the teams playing was a Dakota area team, playing a team from another school district in the NUIC, so I didn't get a lot of gripe from it. And
Mhm.
it was the opposing team from the other school that was having the issue, so um, that helped out.
Yeah.
But it is what it is,
Mhm.
like you said. But we appreciate you coming on, Kyle. Thank you for taking the time to come on this morning and talk about all the issues that we're seeing with officials. Obviously, you've also created us an opportunity to talk about what the requirements are to become an official and what one needs to do to go about doing that. So, you got to go online to the IHSA.org, go to the official center, get it signed up, pay a $75 fee. You have to be able to do all of the courses, same as the
Mhm.
coaches, the concussion test, the hate speech test, go through the rules testing, um, and then get to an IHSA clinic within your first 3 years. And of course, get out to the games and do some officiating.
Yes. Yeah, and like feel free when you drop the link to this to put my email in with it if anybody has any questions. So
Definitely will. I will
I'll
definitely do that for you.
and I'll disclaimer right now that it may be after May before I respond, but I will.
I think as
So,
long as people understand the fact that it's needed, that they can make a difference in helping out, and that if they're worried that they may not be good, realize that no fan will ever be happy and no coach will ever be happy with you. And if everybody is happy with you, you're probably not doing a good job. So,
That's true.
yeah,
so
they've just thrown their hands up.
because I think the best ones are when both sides aren't happy. That's when you did a good job, probably as an official. So, but yeah, we
Well,
need more people like you. We thank you. We thank all the officials that take time out of their nights to make sure that our kids have a chance to play. So,
thank you for giving an outlet to everything within the NUIC, every sport, coaches, officials. What you guys do is invaluable for our small little schools. So it's appreciated by the general public, the officials, the coaches, everybody. So keep up the good work.
thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, Jay, we just got done talking with Kyle Knutti from the White Pines Association, going through talking about the dynamic that we're having with official shortages and how it's going to be an issue trying to get things going as far as getting games rescheduled and all that. And he had a lot of great things to say about what he's experiencing, what they're seeing, and then, of course, putting in the information that we needed to see as far as, getting the um, people signed up to be officials as well.
Yeah, I think two things. I think if you're at that age where he talked about you maybe have your kids out of the house and you're looking for something to do and you're a sports guy, be an official, it'd be a great thing to make some extra money, help the younger generation out. I think number two on my end would be when you see an official, thank them for their time, and remember before you are really mad about that ball call, strike call, or the foul call, just throw some popcorn in or a sucker and let it be till the next one because those guys and ladies don't have to be there. So
Well, and like you stated, and you've said it before on other shows as well, you know, I think there is some truth to it, to where if you're that fan base that's constantly getting on top of an umpire and official, I think there are some officials that will start to call the game even tighter to make those calls seem more drastic as well.
Yeah, I think when you see it in I'm more familiar with basketball, but I think when things get a little chippy between two teams, you see officials change it different to we're going to call it tighter to make these teams clean it up, and it's that way for anything. I've never seen acting in a negative way benefit any team, and that's just my 2 cents. But I think we're very fortunate to have the people that are officials do it, and we need every one of them. So that's the big thing on officiating.
Yep. So as you're watching this, take a look at our Facebook post and our Twitter post. We have Kyle's email address in there as well. That way, you guys can, if you're interested in becoming an official, you can reach out to him. We'll also have the IHSA link in there too. That way, you can get to the school's official center if you want to sign up to become an official in any sport for that matter. So we'll get all that information. Now we're going to move on to sectional talk for baseball and softball. We just got the assignments out as far as where everybody's going this year, and it seems to be a pretty good thing here, Jay, throughout. So you've got some notes written down. We're going to start with what you got going here.
And that's been the talk every week when we've talked, whether it be basketball or baseball, how they divide stuff, how they do it, and it's just a generalization of where you live and how they divide the line. And there's some winners and there's some kind of losers, like we talked about in basketball, and now we talk about in baseball, softball. First, we'll talk softball. In softball, in one region, with the host of Peck and AFC, I think the winners are Orangeville, Dakota. Orangeville looking to win its 7th regional title in a row. They stayed away from kind of the West, along with Dakota. That you're looking at the top 3 teams in that are Orangeville, Dakota, Durand. So that's going to make that Orangeville, Durand, Orangeville, Dakota, Durand game the first time they play really big in seeding. But only those 3 that have really stood out so far this year, but Orangeville and Dakota looking like the 2 top teams, will get a easier way, if you could say that, to a sectional. That's when we turn it to the other side, the west side. They broke it in. Milledgeville and Warren are the host in that sectional or regional. Pearl City, East Dubuque, Galena, Lee Wynn, Milledgeville, Warren, Stockton. All of those teams now vying for 2 regional sites, as Milledgeville and Warren Stockton are the host. Those teams will be divided up. For the winner of 2 of those teams will be able to claim a regional. Big one over the weekend in regional type seating. Warren Stockton beat Lee Wynn 2-1 in that. So, and they only play one time. So that's something when you look regional seating in that side where you're playing. But again, a very stacked regional in that side, to where when we look at the other side, you look at 2 to 3 of the better teams, but we'll have that play out. In big games this week in softball, we found 2. Lee Wynn will play Dakota. Orangeville will play Pearl City. Those will go a long ways into who's going to try to claim the regional or the conference championship on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Moving now to baseball. I think the winners, I feel, in baseball, the winners are Forreston and Eastland. They stay away from the other side. They broke that up different, almost north and south.
Right.
Which
is different. Yes, that's what I was going to mention.
Which again is different than how the softball does it. We see that, and it's different. But Eastland works as a host. They are still trying to find another host in that regional, but more than likely, you wouldn't think Forreston and Eastland, with the teams in that, will play each other.
Looks like they got Amboy to be the host.
Okay, so they changed it. Now Amboy will be the host. So Eastland will be a host. Amboy will be a host. But Eastland and Forreston are the 2 top teams kind of in that area. Amboy's still that team that people are looking upon. It's going to be who they play and who they beat down the road of where they stand. But then again, you look at the other side, which would be the west side of that, or the north side, we call it. Dakota, East Dubuque, Galena, River Ridge, Lena Winslow, Warren Stockton. with East Dubuque and Warren Stockton being the host. You look at any of those teams, any of them can beat anybody. And, we looked at over the weekend a big win for, which are not in either subsectional. AFC beat Lena Winslow 10-7 over the weekend on Saturday. So all of those teams in that subsectional can beat each other in that regional. Again, I feel, when we look at it of how it's divided, the state did two different things with that. But again, East Dubuque, Warren, and then Eastland Amboy, and they will all go to the Lena Winslow sectional.
Yeah, and one of the teams you didn't mention, of course, is Rockford Lutheran. That's a team that knocked us out last year, being Dakota. They're a good team. They returned quite a few players from last year's team, but they've already taken a loss this year to Lena Winslow, which is technically back-to-back losses to Lena Winslow. If you take a look at the regional championship last year and then the regular season matchup this year, so they'll be there.
But that just adds another team into that regional.
Correct.
That is very, very stacked.
And most likely, if they don't get one of the top 4 seeds, they're automatically going to be placed into that Warren regional because that'll be the closest travel point for them.
We think. Ask Pecatonica about that.
Yeah.
Big games this week in baseball. Found kind of 2 of them. Lena Winslow versus Dakota and East Dubuque versus Galena. Those are going to be 2 big games that are going to also, like I said, we're ramping up now conference play. Tuesday, Thursday night, Lee Wynn versus Dakota, East Dubuque versus Galena.
Yeah, so big games there for sure. Big opening conference games for all 4 of those teams. Somebody's going to get a leg down to take the lead in the conference right off the get-go and expand on their expectations. Obviously, East Dubuque and Galena, definitely the top 2 teams in that NUIC West that a lot of people are already talking about preseason-wise. And then Lena Winslow and Dakota, big rivalry game there. Been that way the last 2 seasons for sure. And, they're 2 of the 3 teams in the NUIC North that everybody's talking about having the ability to win that conference. So it'll be great to see how these games play out. Dakota's got a big one too on Monday against River Ridge Scales Mound. That's tomorrow. So another crossover divisional game. They just beat Eastland on Saturday 13-5 as well, or 13-6. So they definitely have been able to gain some notches under their belt as far as that sectional seeding goes, especially with wins over Milledgeville and Warren Stockton already. Now they've added Eastland to that. River Ridge Scales Mound tomorrow before they head into that big matchup with Lena Winslow for the conference opener.
Yeah, like I said, it's getting ramped up. You're seeing a lot of games and a lot of big games now going to come up that's going to determine who's going to be your conference favorite and conference champion. And as quick as you can win it, you can lose it in the first couple weeks of the season.
And that's the hard part. I mean, we watched Forreston and Eastland just play to a 2-1 game in favor of Forreston. Forreston has a couple losses on the season to some tough teams. They've definitely played a tougher schedule. They've got a big win over Freeport. We watched Freeport 10-run Dakota. It just goes to show you that, yes, you can look game to game and see and do all those score comparisons, but it doesn't mean anything until you get into what each team can do against each other and what they have available for pitching at that time.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That's where you see the big difference between baseball and softball. Softball kind of stays steady of who's going to do it because they can throw their ace 5-6 days out of the week. With baseball, if it gets lost in a game and you got to use a pitcher you weren't planning on, everything gets out of whack and you could lose a game and look at a team, you look at a Lee Wynn, who knows what happened, but if depending upon what they have coming this week, they may not have wanted to use something against AFC. You look at a 10-7 game and you look that way, but now coming in, that you're going to see their best pitchers come forward with the Dakota game coming.
Well, and that's just it. Baseball-wise, that Lena Winslow AFC game, yes, that's a good win for AFC, but I look at it this way. Lena Winslow didn't throw their 1 and 2 because they're saving them for Dakota this week with Madigan and Cass going Tuesday, Thursday. They utilized Kobe Kearns in that game. I don't know how he pitched. Normally, he's a very tough player as well, but not one of the guys that they're usually relying on. Actually, it was Cohen Wiegans who started that game, and then Kearns came in. So, I mean, they used some good pitching in that game that they do have. AFC obviously does have some good
No,
hitters with
shout out to AFC.
with Brock Lehman, their catcher, being their big guy, and then they got the roof kid as well. So, AFC's definitely a team that doesn't get a lot of talk, but I mean, I played them last year, and even the year before that, they were a tough team as well. Had a lot of umpires talking about what Coach Treadwell's doing down there, so they're putting the pieces together, and like you said, that was a good win for AFC on Saturday for sure.
Nope. So gonna heat up, and hopefully the weather heats up.
Yeah, it's not looking good to start off the week, but it might be better as the week goes on. I see 40-degree temperatures for tomorrow, so we'll see what games get played and what games get canceled. And then moving forward, obviously, like you said, the games are starting to heat up, and we're starting to move into that mid-April temperatures where they also begin to rise as that conference play starts to take place. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Great job on the research here, Jay, on getting all these games that you have in front of you as far as what was played out this past week. And then your breakdown, I have to agree with you on everything that you said about both baseball and softball and the winners of what the subsectional breakdown, what the host sites are. I mean, that is a huge key. And, one of those teams that we don't want to dismiss per se is Fulton. Granted, right now they've opened up to a 2-6 record, but they're a 3-time regional champion, so they know what it takes. And, they're going to be another player on that baseball side in that South subsectional that can definitely be a player once that all starts to shake out. But good job there, Jay.
That a boy, right?
Yeah.
That a boy. Hey, the only thing I wanted to say, and I know beautiful facility, but I never understand the reasoning for it. And maybe some people can enlighten me, but Lee Win hosts the sectional for baseball.
Yes.
Dakota hosts the sectional for softball. They did get it fixed that the winner of the Dakota softball sectional plays at Sterling, where they always play, Sterling High School. If you haven't seen their facilities there, top of the beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But I'm not sure why in a women's girls softball, they play at Sterling High School, and the boys, after the Lee Win sectional, go to a college facility at NIU.
Yeah, and when you take a look at all of the host sites for baseball for the Supers, you have NIU, you have Illinois Wesleyan, which is another great facility at Jack Horbarger Field. Then you have SIU playing as a host, and then Leakin Land Community College, which I played there myself back in my college playing days. A very nice facility there as well. Granted, just a community college, but great facilities. So you got 4 college facilities there. And then when you take a look at the softball side, you have Triopia, or you have Athens holding a super sectional. The southern teams get to go to SIU for theirs. The central teams get to go to Illinois Wesleyan, but then up here in the north, we're going to Sterling High School. So, yes.
But again,
the equity, there's got to be equity.
But again, well, that's where what I've kind of said here and there. But again, I would say if you haven't been to Sterling on the baseball side could easily host.
Oh, yes.
If you look at their facilities, the Sterling baseball facility is one of the coolest ones you'll see. I've seen pictures, driven by it, and everything like that, and just state-of-the-art stuff. But
I've been able to coach in Sterling on that field. Very nice. The bullpens are nice. They're both double-barreled bullpens, full turf. The whole field is turf. The dugouts are perfect for that kind of setting. They have more than enough bleachers available for the seating environment. But yeah, instead they're going to go to NIU.
Again, that's where I have issues.
Where NIU is also a field turf field. So what's the difference? The playing surface is the same.
Yep.
But I mean, cool for the boys, right? Unfortunate that it's not equal to what the girls are doing. That's the point. So, but great stuff, Jay. Love it. Obviously, like you said, a lot of things heating up. the track participation with the cross meets and stuff going on there. Trying to get as much information as we can on track. There's not a whole lot being put out there outside of what we see from Galena, East Dubuque area, and then of course Lena, Winslow, and Pearl City. So if you have more track information, feel free to send us that information. We'd love to post it, or at least get us into the areas of where we can find that information easier, because IHSA's website does not update that information. So we have to rely on you, the viewers, to help us so we can get that information out there. So again, our email is nuicallaccess@gmail.com. NUICallaccess, just one word. Go ahead and send us that email, and we'd be more than happy to continue to promote and report on your track events, as well as what we get from the baseball and softball sides as well. So, big games heating up, like you said, Jay. Get out to those games, cheer on your teams, and as always, root for the NUIC.